given that we do have a lot of agreement about that bullying is bad and we want to decrease it, I had several questions for Carrie saying, well, if enumeration, which is the solution that's being given on one side, you don't agree with, what solutions would you propose? Do you think that the legislation that we have right now is adequate? Would you propose different legislation? What would your answer be if not enumeration?
The state of Missouri takes the position of trying to allow school districts to have as much local control as possible. So what the current law does not do is it does not require schools to have a policy specific to bullying. What it says is if you have a bullying policy, that policy must be equitable. And the sentence to be removed in favor of the enumerations says, policy shall, that's affirmative, it is a shall, treat students equally and shall not contain specific list of protected classes of students who are to receive special treatment. That statement is removed. I believe that statement should stay as a guideline for public school districts that have a bullying policy. That's my contention. That's the whole point of the debate. I believe that schools should treat all bullying in the same vein. You discern whether it was truly bullying or whether it was something out of ignorance, as we just talked about, with the potential of a young child versus an older child saying something inappropriate. I believe the punishment should fit the offense, and there needs to be strict attention given to who the bully is and what the motivation is, not who the victim is.
So I just want to say in that case, it's not necessarily about this specific law, but across the state of Missouri, schools do create their own anti-discrimination policies. Cities and counties do the same. In the city of St. Louis, you can no longer be fired for your sexual orientation. And just recently, we included gender identity. There's 80% of the schools, school districts in the state of Missouri have passed an enumerated categories anti-discrimination policy in their schools, meaning that the administration can no longer discriminate based on enumerated categories that we've talked about tonight. Only two of those, include those that include gender identity. Those are the people that are actually being left out here. Gender identity. One of them's in Kansas City, and one of them is here local in St. Louis. U City. Yeah, you're from U City. Exactly, that's right. So it's great whenever we see that these schools are doing it already. But again, they're leaving people off the bus, and so why would we want to do that? Why would we want to make a state law that does encompass that? It's because it, like he said, it says, you've got to actually make a policy, not you should. So I think that's really important. And to note that across the board, across the state, we're already seeing enumerated categories happening in schools. So they want to do this.
I misstated the fact.
Oh, okay.
They can't.
I apologize. I misstated. The current law says that every district does have to have an anti-bullying policy.
Right.
Oh.
I said that part wrong.
Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there as far as like what's happening now across the state. The trend is that we're finding the schools actually are putting enumerated categories into their policies about administratively what's happening to schools. And to the other thing about sort of like one of the points that he's been saying over today, and I think it's real interesting, which is sort of like we want bullying to be treated across the board the same. But then sort of like, he also has stated sort of like all bullying is not the same. We've got to look at specific cases that happen and sort of address that issue. I think that a enumerated categories bill in general just sends a real clear message to the whole state about sort of what we believe. And sometimes when I work on issues like this, they're not, small little things like enumerated categories are not going to really make the difference. in so many different people's lives. You might not feel it directly or indirectly, but it does send a clear message to the people that are in the community, such as those people who are with families and have transgender kids. And they feel a little bit safer because they can send their kid to a public school and say, it's against the law for you to bully my kid because they're transgendered. That's it. And right now, it's not like a really big issue. I know because I have a mother that calls me and talks to me all the time about how our kid's getting bullied. And I'm like, you know, I can't really say that like, in the community that she lives in isn't supportive, you know? So it's just real troubling when we talk about sort of not enumerating the categories. I think it empowers those people who need it. And like somebody suggested, you know, that little piece of information about sort of like could be or not, whatever, limited to this, I think it's like, well, yeah, of course, why not? You know, it doesn't make any sense to say only these enumerated categories are protected. Because obviously we don't want to see any kid bullied. Either, and somebody sent me a text message right before this debate, and they said, either you're protecting students or you're not.
Just a clarifying question, because somebody asked,